The heat was still clinging to my skin hours after the flashover. My chest burned, my lungs still caught between the memory of smoke and the sharp tang of adrenaline. Every second had felt eternal, the fire roaring like a living thing, pressing me to my limits. I survived, but I knew survival meant more than walking away physically unscathed. It meant waking up to truths I'd been avoiding, the ones that threatened my life in subtler ways. Back at the station, the echo of boots and hoses filled the locker room. The others were bustling through routine, laughing and teasing about last night's drill, but I felt removed, distant. My eyes wandered over the line of helmets, boots, and turnout gear, looking for a quiet moment to gather myself. And that's when I saw it, Quentin's helmet bag, left behind in a rush. He was always in a hurry, always putting the department first, or so I thought. Picking up the bag, I noticed something tucked deep into the lining, a small photograph. My fingers trembled as I pulled it free. At first, it seemed innocent. A snapshot from the annual picnic, the kind we all took and joked about. But then my breath caught. There was Quentin, yes, but he wasn't alone. Standing beside him, smiling naturally, was Evelyn. The one he had always claimed was just an old high school friend. And in between them, a little girl, maybe 3 years old, grinning at the camera with tiny hands resting on both their shoulders. A family photo. A family photo that no one had ever mentioned. I sank into the nearest bench, the picture in my hand feeling heavier than the gear I'd carried into the fire. So this is real, I muttered to myself. My mind raced. All those evenings he claimed were late shifts, the mysterious weekend trips he never explained. This photo explained them. And it wasn't some casual fling or a short-term mistake. This was long-term. Jasper's voice interrupted my spiraling thoughts. Aurora? You okay? He had leaned against the doorway, leaning on the frame with the easy calm he always carried. I looked up, holding the photo like a fragile piece of evidence. I found this in Quentin's bag. My voice shook slightly even now. Look at it. Jasper took the photo, his brow knitting as he studied it. He didn't need me to explain anything. He knew Quentin's patterns, his absences, his manipulations. And he knew loyalty, the kind that mattered. This is a problem, he said finally, handing the photo back. We need to handle this carefully. Not just for you, but for the department. I nodded, the weight of betrayal pressing down, but also a strange sense of clarity. The fire had almost killed me, but this deceit had been chipping away at me for years. I wasn't going to let it continue. For the first time, I realized that surviving wasn't enough. I needed to act. Protect myself, protect the truth, and face the internal fires Quentin had started burning long before I ever stepped into the station. And I knew exactly who I could trust to help me. Jasper. I couldn't stop staring at the photo. Even hours later when I was back at the station, the smell of smoke still clinging to my clothes. Something about it was suffocating, like a weight pressing on my chest. I kept replaying the image in my mind. Quentin's easy smile, Evelyn's gentle laugh frozen in time, the little girl beaming innocently between them. How had he managed to hide all of this? And for how long? Jasper hadn't left my side since he first saw it. His presence was steady, grounding, the kind of calm I desperately needed. Aurora, he said, his tone quiet but firm. You deserve the truth. And if this is what it looks like, then it's more than just a secret fling. That's a family. And you've been kept completely in the dark. I clenched my fists. Years of trusting Quentin, of believing he was honest with me, came crashing down in a single, vivid image. The fire had shown me I needed to value my own survival. Now, this revealed the emotional fire he'd been burning, all the lies and omissions that could have destroyed me just as thoroughly. I always wondered why he'd disappear for hours, I muttered, my voice tight. All those late-night calls, the unexplained department politics, the weekends he suddenly claimed to be working on the east side. It was never work, never about the department. Jasper nodded. And now we know. But we need proof. Not just the photo, evidence that shows how far this goes. If he's been using department resources, personnel, or vehicles to support this secret life, we need it. carefully, methodically. I felt a strange clarity settling over me. The fear from the flashover, the lingering trauma, it had sharpened my focus. I could no longer ignore the truth. If Quentin had been this deceptive, hiding a whole other life, I couldn't rely on anyone but myself and Jasper. That evening, we started putting the pieces together. Old schedules, vehicle logs, and notes from past shifts, all of them lined up in a way that revealed patterns I had only sensed but never confirmed. Every absence, every emergency or late-night meeting suddenly fit a sinister puzzle. Quentin hadn't just been lying. He had been manipulating reality, weaving his double life into the very operations I trusted him to uphold. I swallowed hard. The betrayal stung, but it no longer paralyzed me. With Jasper's help, I could see the path forward. Evidence, exposure, and reclaiming the power Quentin had tried to steal from me. "Are you sure about this?" Jasper asked, his hand resting briefly on my shoulder. There was concern, yes, but also unwavering trust. "Once we start, there's no turning back." I looked at him, and for the first time since discovering the photo, I smiled. Not a small, doubtful smile, but one of confidence. "I'm done turning back. Let's put out the fires he started, and make sure no one else gets burned." The rebirth had begun. The next morning, I woke before the sun, the photo still burning in my mind. Every memory of Quentin's charming reassurances, every whispered promise, now felt tainted. The fire had saved me physically. Now I needed to save myself emotionally. And for that, I had to know the full truth. Jasper met me at the station, coffee in hand, a quiet presence that somehow steadied my racing thoughts. "We need to be methodical," he said, leaning against the edge of my desk. "If we rush, we risk missing something critical. Or worse, alerting him." I nodded, grabbing the department logs he had brought. Vehicle movements, shift schedules, maintenance reports, all of it spread across the table like pieces of a puzzle I was only now able to see. "Every absence, every unexplained trip," I muttered, running a finger over a list of department-issued keys that seemed to disappear from the log for days at a time. "It all ties back to her." "Evelyn." Jasper pointed to a line of entries. "Notice this? Every Thursday night, a department vehicle was out for nearly 6 hours. No official call, no report, but that aligns with the city council's planning meetings in the district where the photo was taken." I felt a chill run through me. The puzzle wasn't just domestic, it was professional. Quentin had used his authority, his role, to maintain this hidden life. And I had trusted him completely. My stomach knotted with rage, but also relief. Finally, I could act. Finally, I could protect myself. We split tasks. Jasper would check the vehicle logs against public events, and I would discreetly interview colleagues I trusted, piecing together testimony without revealing my full intent. Every conversation confirmed a detail, a pattern, a lie that Quentin had woven into my life like a poisonous thread. Late that afternoon, I slipped into the supply room to review archived security footage from the department's side entrances. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but anticipation. The first clip revealed Quentin exiting the building, clearly relaxed, carrying what appeared to be personal belongings. On a night he had told me he'd be supervising a city drill. I paused the video, heart pounding. That was the proof I needed, a documented pattern of deception. Jasper arrived silently behind me, leaning over my shoulder. "You've got him," he said softly. His eyes held admiration, but there was no condescension. He believed in me, in my integrity. That belief alone made me feel stronger. For the first time since the flashover, I felt in control. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth, accountability, and my survival. Quentin's fires might have consumed everything he touched, but they wouldn't consume me. Not now. We gathered the footage, printed the schedules, and compiled the witness accounts into a tidy, undeniable dossier. Every step was meticulous, precise. And all the while, Jasper stayed by my side, a constant reminder that some people could be trusted, that some alliances were worth forming. "This is it," I whispered, half to myself, half to him. "The moment we take control." Jasper nodded, eyes steady. "And I'll be with you every step." For the first time in months, I believed it. We were ready. The evening settled over the station quietly, but my mind was anything but calm. I laid the compiled dossier across my desk, the photos, logs, and witness statements forming an unassailable narrative. Quentin's deception wasn't just personal, it was professional, systemic, and dangerous. Every line in the logs and every frame from the security footage screamed betrayal. Jasper came in carrying a thermos of coffee, setting it down beside me. "You need fuel," he said softly. He had that calm, steady energy that made me realize I wasn't alone in this. That maybe I could actually see it through without unraveling. "I can't believe I didn't see it," I murmured, running my fingers over the image of Quentin and Evelyn at that picnic. The 3-year-old, laughing innocently, was evidence of years of manipulation, lies woven into my life, hidden behind a professional facade. All this time, I thought I was his partner, his confidant. I was just blind. Jasper shook his head. "No. You were loyal, and that's not a fault. It's a strength. The fault lies with him. Now, we just need to use this truth to neutralize the danger." I looked up at him, grateful. Neutralize. Not destroy. Just make sure he can't hurt anyone else. We started mapping the exposure. The goal wasn't to humiliate for revenge. It was to protect the department, his colleagues, and myself. We agreed on 3 targets: the city council, the department board, and the press, all approached in a factual, indisputable way. Evidence first, interpretation second. "We need a timeline," Jasper suggested. "Everything in chronological order, clear and concise. We can't let anyone dismiss it as circumstantial." I nodded, pulling up the calendars, cross-referencing the vehicle logs with public city meetings and departmental drills. Each anomaly became a bullet point in our narrative. Every unexplained absence was now a verified instance of deceit. My anger, my betrayal, became fuel, sharpening my focus, my precision. By late evening, we had a complete plan: the dossier, a step-by-step timeline, and secure digital backups. I felt a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. Quentin's manipulations had been hidden in plain sight, but the truth, once unearthed, was undeniable. "Are you ready for this?" Jasper asked, leaning against the doorway. His voice was low, steady, like a lifeline. "I am," I replied, the words carrying weight. "I've been running on instinct and fear for too long. Now it's strategy and facts." He smiled, that quiet, perceptive smile that had comforted me through countless station emergencies. "Then let's move. I'll handle the city channels. You focus on the department and media." Together, we close the circle. For the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of calm. The fire flashover had almost killed me, but it had also awakened me. I was no longer running blindly after a man who didn't deserve my loyalty. Now I had a mission, a purpose, and Jasper by my side. As the station lights dimmed around us, I realized something else. Maybe, just maybe, I could also rebuild the life I wanted. Not defined by deceit, but by integrity, courage, and the rare kind of partnership that Jasper represented. Tomorrow, the exposure would begin. And this time, I would face it fully, with my eyes wide open. Morning came with the harsh clarity of winter sunlight cutting through the station windows. I reviewed the dossier one last time, tracing each note, each timestamp. Every instance of Quentin's deceit had been documented, verified, and cross-checked. The enormity of what I was about to do pressed against my chest, but it wasn't fear, it was resolve. Jasper arrived just as I was locking the digital files. "All set?" he asked, his usual calm masking the tension in his shoulders. He always carried that quiet confidence, the kind that made me trust the impossible. "All set," I said. "We start small. City Council first. They hold the authority to demand a formal review. Then the department board. The media comes last, controlled, factual, with no room for spin." We moved with precision. I sent the encrypted dossier to the council liaison, ensuring it could only be opened by the intended recipients. The document outlined everything: the secret family, The unauthorized absences, the misuse of department vehicles, and the clear timeline of manipulations. Every detail was verifiable, leaving no room for doubt. By mid-morning, responses trickled in. The council acknowledged receipt and requested an urgent meeting. I felt a flicker of vindication, but pushed it aside. This wasn't about emotion, it was about accountability. Jasper and I met privately at the station, mapping out the questions we anticipated and the evidence we'd need to counter any defensive tactics from Quentin. He's going to try to charm, to manipulate, Jasper said, rubbing his temples. Stick to facts. No speculation. No emotion. Just proof. I nodded, feeling the weight of the fire flashover moment again. That near-death experience had shown me how fragile life could be and how important it was to protect my own energy, my own truth. Now, I wasn't just defending myself, I was defending the integrity of the department. By afternoon, word of the investigation had spread quietly through professional channels. Officers whispered behind closed doors, some shocked, some relieved. The department had long suspected discrepancies, but no one had dared confront them. With the council involved, everything was now official. Jasper kept close, guiding me through every interaction, offering insight I hadn't considered. His presence wasn't just protective, it was empowering. I realized in a new way that I could rely on him. Not because I needed saving, but because we were aligned in vision, ethics, and determination. As the day ended, I finally allowed myself a brief moment to breathe. The exposure was underway, and Quentin's carefully constructed facade had begun to crumble. Yet, more than the unfolding justice, I felt the subtle undercurrent of something else: trust, respect, and even the beginnings of an intimacy with Jasper that wasn't tangled in deceit. For the first time, I recognized that rebirth wasn't just about revealing the lies of the past. It was about consciously choosing the people and truths that would define my future. And with Jasper by my side, I could finally see that future clearly. The morning of the board meeting arrived with a tension that felt almost physical, pressing against my ribs like the heat of a contained blaze. Jasper and I arrived early, carrying our folders of evidence, knowing every second mattered. This was no longer about whispering suspicions or subtle hints. It was an organized strike against deception. The conference room was stark, the fluorescent lights harsh. Quentin arrived last, confident as ever, his uniform crisp, his expression carefully neutral. I could feel the smirk he usually wore lurking behind his professional mask, the one that said, "I control everything." The council chair opened the meeting, and I presented the documentation. Each photograph, timestamp, and digital record was laid out in meticulous order. "We have evidence," I said firmly, my voice steady. "Evidence that Chief Vance has maintained a second family unknown to this department, has used department resources for personal purposes, and manipulated staff schedules to cover his absences." Quentin's eyes flicked to me, a flash of surprise. He hadn't expected the calm authority, the precision. "Aurora," he began, but the council chair cut him off. "Please hold your statements until all evidence has been reviewed." I felt Jasper's steady presence behind me. He didn't speak, he didn't need to. His quiet assurance amplified my own clarity. I realized then that my rebirth wasn't just a personal awakening. It had aligned me with someone who truly understood integrity and loyalty. Quentin finally spoke, attempting charm first. "These documents are taken out of context," he said smoothly. "My family life is separate from my professional duties, and any allegations of misuse are unfounded." I handed over the detailed logs of department vehicle use, correspondence with city officials, and records of overtime mismanagement. "Separate or not," I said, eyes locked on his, "you've used the resources of this department to support your private life. That's not separate, it's unethical, and it's illegal under city guidelines." The room was silent. I could see officers exchanging subtle glances. Some nodded ever so slightly, their relief at having the truth out there palpable. The council members asked pointed, precise questions, each answered with the cold clarity of fact, not accusation. By the end of the session, it was clear that Quentin had no room to maneuver. The council announced an immediate investigation into his conduct and the misuse of department assets. His facade of control had fractured. As we left the building, Jasper walked beside me. He didn't need to say anything. I could feel the trust and mutual respect deepening. This was more than professional alignment. It was a recognition of shared values, of a bond forged in crisis and clarity. Later that evening, standing in the glow of the station bay lights, I allowed myself a small smile. The internal fire that had threatened my life and my career was now contained. And beside me, Jasper's presence felt like the steady, warm ember of something enduring, reliable, and real. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving the chaos around me. I was choosing my life, my allies, and the truth I wanted to carry forward. The next few days blurred into a whirlwind. News outlets had picked up the council's investigation announcement, and suddenly the story of Quentin's double life was everywhere. Social media lit up with every detail we'd submitted. Hashtags naming him trended locally. I'd expected the stress, but what I hadn't expected was the surge of relief that came with finally speaking and exposing the truth. Jasper and I spent hours at the station, organizing all remaining evidence. Every phone log, every departmental form, every photograph of discrepancies, it all had to be airtight. Jasper didn't just help me prepare. He silently reassured me when the weight of the scandal pressed down too heavily. His calm presence became my anchor. "Are you sure we're ready for this?" I asked one evening as we reviewed another batch of documents. He looked up, expression steady, and said, "We don't just have evidence, Aurora. We have the truth. That's something no one can argue with." I nodded. His words reminded me that this was bigger than personal betrayal. It was about integrity, public trust, and the countless colleagues who had unknowingly been manipulated by Quentin's duplicity. The media storm hit harder than I anticipated. Calls from reporters, invitations for interviews, and even anonymous tips pointing to other irregularities in Quentin's tenure started arriving. I realized then that the consequences would ripple far beyond just exposing a deceitful ex-partner. Public accountability was beginning to reshape the department. One evening, after a long day of meetings and interviews, Jasper and I walked outside together. The air was crisp, and the quiet of the station felt restorative after hours of relentless scrutiny. I found myself speaking more openly than I had in months, perhaps even years, despite the chaos around me. "I never realized how much I held myself back," I said, staring at the streetlights reflecting on the wet pavement. "All that time, I thought I was protecting everyone else, trying to save him, save the department, but I was just standing still, waiting to be burned again." Jasper didn't answer right away. He simply rested a hand lightly on my shoulder. "You didn't just survive the fire, Aurora," he said quietly. "You learned how to control it, how to use it to protect yourself and the people who matter." I felt a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with adrenaline or fear. It was trust, understanding, and something quietly thrilling, an unspoken acknowledgement of partnership and shared strength. The following morning, the council held a public session to address the unfolding scandal. Witnesses were called, and department staff shared statements corroborating our findings. Quentin remained visibly rigid, the weight of public scrutiny pressing down, and I realized this was the final collapse of his carefully constructed image. After the session, Jasper caught my hand as we left the chambers. "Whatever happens next," he said, "we face it together." And in that moment, I knew it wasn't just about exposing lies anymore. It was about building a future that was honest, grounded, and fiercely protected together. The morning light cut sharply through the station windows, crisp and illuminating every corner, every detail. It was quiet now, an almost surreal silence after the chaos of weeks past. Quentin's suspension was official. The council had issued a full investigation report, publicly documenting his misuse of department resources and personal deceit. The scandal was over, and the station was finally mine to breathe in freely again. Jasper and I moved through the station like we owned it, not just because we were cleared of any wrongdoing, but because we had reclaimed the integrity and trust that had been so carefully eroded. The fire of betrayal had consumed much, but it had also forged something new, something unshakable between us. I stood by the bay where the trucks rested, the scent of leather and engine oil grounding me. Jasper approached, hands deep in his jacket pockets, his calm presence radiating certainty. "Feels different, doesn't it?" he asked, a small smile playing on his lips. "It does," I said, feeling the weight of relief and empowerment in my chest. I can breathe. I can move forward without fear that someone else's lies will burn me again. He stepped closer, tilting his head, his gaze steady and unwavering. "And you won't have to. Not alone." The truth of those words hit me, stronger than any fire I'd ever fought. All the training, all the moments of danger, all the moments I had survived physically and emotionally, they had led me here. To this clarity, to this shared understanding with someone I could finally trust completely. As the day progressed, the station hummed with quiet productivity, officers moving with purpose, their confidence restored. Jasper and I walked the length of the bays, checking equipment, exchanging small smiles, and unspoken reassurances. Everything we had fought for, the truth, our safety, our dignity, was finally ours. Later, outside, he took my hand. It was simple, grounding, a quiet contrast to the tumult we had just endured. "Aurora," he said, voice low, "I've always admired how you face fire. Not just the flames, but everything life throws at you. I want to be there for every blaze, every calm, every day in between." I squeezed his hand, my heart finally feeling secure, untethered from the fear of deception. "And I trust you," I whispered, the words almost shocking in their intimacy, the weight of vulnerability balanced by certainty. The sun set over the city, warm light spilling over the firehouse, reflecting on the polished trucks and the banners of achievement lining the walls. I looked at Jasper, feeling a fierce, unwavering connection. Here, with him, I had found safety, honesty, and partnership. We didn't need grand gestures or public declarations. We had truth, trust, and the quiet knowledge that together we could face anything. The fires of the past had burned away the illusions, leaving only what mattered: integrity, loyalty, and love.